Hello, welcome to CFN Media again. I'm John Veneri, editor of Catholic Family News, and this is the second little installment we're doing in response to Michael Voris and his assault on traditional, or what he calls, reactionary Catholics. I said that I was going to make a three-point response. I made the first one regarding the fact that the Society of St. Pius X is not in schism. It was just a brief overview. I quoted Cardinal Cassidy, who said that the SSPX is an internal church matter. They're not to be dealt with as a body outside the church. And the other 2 points that I'm going to make here, what I'm going to finish up, is the second point being that I want to talk about the big media tactics that Michael Voris is employing that I think do him no credit. And thirdly, I'll close by pointing out a really clumsy and glaring falsehood with which he closed his segment. Now, as I said, I want to mention one of the problems with the Voris approach, and that is I believe that by imitating, he's imitating secular media. Nothing wrong with that in a way, because it's what people are used to seeing, so that's not the problem. But by imitating the secular media too closely, he then is falling into the same pitfalls. And the obvious example here is slapping this label of reactionary on us. His own negative label that is meant to paint us in a bad light, okay? Reactionary Catholics. Now, this is a term, of course, that does not have any objective meaning, and it's a tactic that is employed by the big media and also by the anti-Catholic Southern Poverty Law Center. When the Southern Poverty Law Center wants to discredit someone, they never give a rational explanation of what the person is about. They just throw a negative label on them. You're a hate monger, you're a hater, you're a bigot, you're an extremist. The Southern Poverty Law Center recently declared that Dr. Ben Carson is an extremist, okay? Well, Voris, I regret to say, I see, is using the same tactic. He's slapping on us an imprecise, derogatory label, reactionary. But we have to remember in all this the wise words of the late Monsignor William Smith, who had been professor of moral theology of Dunwoody Seminary. He says, and he's right, labels prevent thinking. You slap a label on someone, there's no further thinking. Now, this is why the big media does it. This is why the anti-Catholic Southern Poverty Law Center does it, and this, I believe, is why Michael Voris does it. Just look at this little collection from the broadcast and how often this term reactionary pops up within a short space of a little 15-minute segment.
Reactionary organization.
The reactionary Catholic media, about reactionary, by reactionary.
The reactionaries. He's a reactionary.
So the reactionary Catholic.
This reactionary Catholic.
From this reactionary media, reactionary Catholic media has got to chill.
This is big media tactics. It is Southern Poverty Law Center tactics. It's about as Thomistic as Rachel Maddow. And I think Mr. Voris should be careful, because if he keeps up slapping this potboiler rhetoric on those who he wants to disparage, he will know in time, he will no longer be church militant TV, but he will degenerate into the Southern Poverty Voris Center. Now, a final point. One of the many negative characteristics about the Southern Poverty Law Center is that they will make broad, sweeping half-truths, and then, because they're on this roll, they will then descend into outright falsehoods. I've had it done to me. My friends in the traditional movement have had it done to them by the Southern Poverty Law Center, and I'm afraid to say that Voris falls into the same pit. He closes his reactionary segment with a blatant falsehood. Take a look.
It was from this reactionary media where the idea kind of began to leak into the press, into Catholics' minds, that Pope Francis isn't the legitimate Pope. Yeah. They said, no, there's maybe, Benedict there was a word in his resignation.
Archbishop.
Now, this claim about two popes, and that Benedict is probably still Pope and Pope Francis may not be Pope, this did not come from the so-called reactionary media that Voris poo-poos. It actually came from, well, three main sources, really. The Italian Catholic journalist Antonio Socci. It came from the respected Vaticanista journalist Vittorio Missouri, and primarily from a priest named Father Stefano Viola, who is a professor of canon law at the theological faculty, I want to make sure I've got this right, of the Emilia-Romagna in Italy. It's an essay he wrote on the topic in 2013. None of these men, from what I know, are Latin Mass only Catholics. None are reactionary media Catholics. And now, of course, a good number of people has picked up on this story. And first of all, I'll tell you from the beginning, and I've made this clear in the pages of Catholic Family News, that this is not the position of Catholic Family News anyway. I don't hold that Benedict is actually Pope. In fact, Catholic Family News, a few months ago, I published the news report where Pope Benedict said, "My resignation is valid." And in a subsequent article that was written by someone else, he was talking about this controversy in the light of Fatima, and he was not even arguing that Benedict is still Pope. I made it clear in my editor's note that Catholic Family News accepts Francis as the Pope. So I'll close with a 3-point summary. Number one, the Society of St. Pius X is not outside the Church. Catholic common sense and even Vatican Cardinal Cassidy admits this, and we'll talk more about this in the future. Number two, I fear that Voris is degenerating into the worst aspects of big media tactics, just slapping a name on us and calling us reactionaries, a potboiler term that has no objective meaning, really. It's a meaning that Voris gives it in this instance. And third, like the big media and like the Southern Poverty Law Center, he ends up making bold statements that are flatly wrong. Obvious, clumsy falsehood. Claiming that it is from in this case, claiming that it is from the traditional reactionaries where this idea that Benedict is still Pope and Francis is not came from, when in fact it did not come from the traditional Catholic media. It came from two mainstream Vatican journalists and a professor of canon law in Italy. So for Catholic Family News, I'm John Veneri. I hope to have something a little more pleasant to talk about next time, and we'll see you on the next broadcast. Thank you.